Hello and welcome back. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the musical alphabet. And the musical alphabet is made up of the first letters of the alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So I know many of you guys have a favorite band, a favorite song, artist, composer that you guys like to listen to, or even better, a favorite instrument that you guys like to play. And the good news is that 99.9% of that music that you guys like to listen to is made up of these 7 letters and its variations. Okay, so why don't we listen to these notes? So let's start. This is A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay, so this is a section of a keyboard that we have right here. So now let's take a look at a bigger section of a keyboard and let's see what happens to these 7 letters and what kind of patterns they create. Now we have over here the layout of a keyboard, and we also have our staff. If you guys can remember from the first lesson, we have our treble and our bass clef. Now we're gonna see how the keyboard and our staff is going to interact with a musical alphabet. But for now, don't worry too much on where specifically each note will be on the staff. But instead, let's worry about the patterns that our musical alphabet will create on our keyboard and on our staff, okay? So let's start with A down here. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. If we do that again, let's see how. Remember when we said that our staff has 5 lines and 4 spaces? Look, this A starts on a space. The next note goes to a line, space, line, space, line, space. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Now if we go to the next A, we'll see the same pattern. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the same thing occurs. Line, space, line, space, line, space, line. Okay? Now if we keep going, with the next A, we'll see the same exact pattern. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And of course, this will be throughout the whole keyboard. And this pattern, this musical alphabet, of course, occurs in other instruments as well, like the guitar, the violin, the flute. These 7 notes are the very integral part of music. Okay, so now let's try to block all of these notes now. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. You guys can see here the musical alphabet. Now, if we go up, starting from here, we have the same thing. You just sound higher. A, B, C, D, F, and G. Now, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And of course, this will work on the higher register and the lower register as well. Now let's take a look at a different instrument and see how the musical alphabet also applies to that. As you guys can see here, we have a neck of a guitar, and I want to show you how the musical alphabet also applies to the guitar. And if we see at the yellow circles, we start with the open A string. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And you can see the red circles. Those are the ones where our pattern starts again. A, B, and so on and so on. Now, what if we try to recreate the same pattern on a different string? For example, on the B string. Now, we know that before a B there's an A, but for now, let's just keep going on forward. So we have B, C. Oh, why don't we change the color? Let's try. There you go. B, C, D, E, F, G, A, and back to B. Okay, and why don't we try one more string? Let's try the E string. So we have E, and we know that after an E comes an F. E, F, G. Then we have an A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, so you guys can see The A's are not in the same place, all of them, but the pattern stays the same. A, B, C, D, E, F, and of course here A, B, C, and that's throughout the whole neck. Now you might be asking yourself why we are skipping some frets. For example, this fret right here, or this one right here, and so on and so on. Why we're skipping these ones? For now, let's not worry about it, but let's make a small connection to the keyboard. Remember, in the keyboard we were skipping something. If you notice, we were skipping the black keys. So it's the same thing. Those black keys are gonna correlate to the the frets that we're skipping on the guitar. And music theory and music in general is all about patterns. So it's nice to start recognizing the patterns already. If we see one tiny pattern here, the E and the F don't have a black key between them. The B and the C don't have a black key in between them. Now let's take a look at the guitar. The E and the F don't have a fret between them. The B and the C, they're right next to each other. Same thing here. B and C, and the E and F. So that's another little pattern that's gonna make more sense once we get into the black notes. Okay, so now why don't we really start to put everything together? So now we have the musical alphabet, the clef, and the staff right here. So let's begin. So we have our A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and of course this pattern just keeps repeating. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and so on, up and down as well. Okay, so now if you guys remember from the first lesson, we already know a note that goes into this staff, which is the G note, correct? So that's the G note. Why? Because remember, the second line is the reference line or the G line, because this is the treble clef or G clef. So that's our G note. So that's the one that goes right there. So the G. So now what happens if we go to the right or we go up? Then if we place a note here, that of course would be A. So A, as you guys can see, is on the second space. And then if we put another note after that, it would be B. And then we just keep going to the right or up. So this is C. And then D, E, oops. So now we have E here. And as you can see, E is on the last space. 1, 2, 3, 4, on the fourth space. That correlates to the note E. And then our last line here would be F. So let's pretend that G is this G that we started here. So if we keep going to the right, we just keep going up, okay? And if we go to the left, we go down. So let's see. So before G, we have an F here. So we have an F and then an E. Okay, so now let's quickly play these notes from E to F. So this is how it sounds like. So we have E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. So we have our F and our E. But of course we have notes below this E. You can hear them. And we have notes above this F. So what do we do now? So we can just keep going up. So let's put a G here. And then you guys can see that we've run out of line. So in this case, this is what we do. We add a small line, and I'm sure you guys have seen this before, and we add the note, and that would be A. So I don't have room anymore to go up, but you can keep adding lines and keep going up. Because you guys can hear we have higher and higher notes. So that will be an A, and the same thing going down. So we have E. If we put a note here, that would be D. And if we put a small line and another note, that would be C. C. And of course, we can keep going down and keep adding more and more notes. So you guys can see the musical alphabet just keeps repeating the same with the notes. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and starting in A and going down. Okay. Now, what happens if we keep going down, down, and down? We'll just keep adding little lines and little lines and little lines. So how do we fix that so we don't have to keep adding lines? That's when we start using the other clef, the F clef or bass clef. So we can start introducing the lower notes, okay? So now let's take a look at the bass clef. Here we have our bass or F clef, and we already know one note that goes into the bass clef, which is the F. If we put it here, that would be our F note, and of course that is an F note because that's our F line because of the two dots that go in between that line, our F clef. And just like the treble clef, now we can start putting notes going up or going down. So we already know that after an F, we have a G. After a G, we have an A. And of course, the same thing going down. So that's an E. That's a D. And here we have a C. And here we have a B. An A. And a G. And of course, you guys can see the pattern once again. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, and so on and so on. So why don't we listen to these notes? So let's start from the A up here, and we're going to go down. So we have A, G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G. And as you guys can see, the notes are getting lower compared to the treble clef. So that's why we're in the bass clef now, because we have the lower range of the piano. Okay, and just like the treble clef, let's play this A one more time. As you guys can see here, we have more notes going up. So we can keep adding more notes here. So we have our B, and we just need to add one little line here so we can put our C, and then a D, and of course we can keep going up. And here we have an E. And these little lines, they have names. So let's take a look at this graph. And as you guys can see, these lines are called ledger lines. When you add one of those little lines to keep adding notes, that would be a ledger line. So why don't we quickly identify this note all the way down here? Let's go to our point of reference. That would be G, which is the second line. G. What comes before a G? F, E, D, C, B, A, G, and F. So this note will be an F note. Okay, so that's how you read the ledger lines. But we'll definitely get more into depth of all of these ledger lines once we start talking about major, minor scales. Okay, so but the next step would be to add the treble and bass clef together to create the grand staff. So let's take a look at that now. Here we have our grand staff. As you guys can see, a grand staff is made up of two staffs put together, in this case being a treble and a bass clef joined by a brace. And the point of a grand staff is to show a large range of notes. And of course, the perfect example of an instrument that has a large range of notes is the piano. In fact, the piano has 88 keys or notes. Now let's begin to see how the grand staff translates on the piano. Let's begin with some points of references. Let's start with middle C or C4. As you guys can tell right here, the numbers represent how many C's we have on the piano. So we have 8 C's. So the C4 is the one right on the middle. So you would call this, I guess, the middle of the piano. So that's why you call it middle C. Pretty straightforward. And On the grand staff, you would place the middle C here. As you guys can tell, this is almost like the middle of the piano. You go up on the piano, you go to the right. You go down on the piano, you go to the left. Okay, and let's not get confused. These two C's are representing that middle C. So you don't have two middle C's, you only have one. But this is representing how we approach middle C from the bass clef and how we approach middle C from the treble clef. The other point of reference would be G. Of course, because that's our G line of our treble clef. And that G would go here. And that's, to be a little more precise, that would be G4. And now let's go to our other point of reference, and that would be F. Of course, because that's our F clef, our F line. And that would be down here. And that would be F3. Why? Because that's the third F on the piano. F1, F2, and F3. F3, and let's put here G4. Now, let's listen to this F3. So now I'm playing F3. Now let's go up to our C. F, G, A, B, and C. F, G, A, B, and C. Now let's go from C up to G. C, D, E, F, and G. Okay, so you guys are now starting to see the pattern. And let's make something clear. Whenever you see an F here or here, you would only hear that F. Just because this is an F doesn't mean you can play any F on the piano. This F is only representing F3. This G on the second line is only representing G4. Okay, so let's start to make those connections, because I've seen many people, whenever they see a note, they would say, oh yes, I know that's a G, and they would play any G on the piano or on their instrument, but that G would only represent G4. Okay, and of course we don't have all 88 keys here on our grand staff, but if we wanted to show higher notes, we can just add ledger lines. As you guys can see, this A is on a ledger line. If we add, that would be a B, and if we add two ledger lines and we put a note there, that would be a C. And as you guys can see, middle C is on a ledger line. It's outside the our 5 lines of the staff. The same thing going down. We can add there an F, and then we put one ledger line. Oh, let's fix that. Let's make that a little clearer. That would be an E. Make sure you're very clear to show that either the note is on a line or on a space. Okay. It is very important for anyone learning music theory or an instrument to become very familiar where the notes are on a staff. In other words, you have to be very proficient at recognizing the notes when you see them on the staff. And this graph looks pretty messy to do that. So why don't we take a look at this other graph here, and we're going to use phrases to help us remember the name of the notes on each line and space on the treble and bass clef. Okay, as you guys can see, there's a division here of the space notes and the notes on a line for both the treble and the bass clef. And for the spaces on the treble clef, this one's pretty simple. We have face, F-A-C-E. So the treble space notes are face, F-A-C-E, F-A-C-E. Now, if we look at the lines on a treble clef, we have E, G, B, D, F. Every good boy does fine. And of course, you can come up with your own phrase, but this is the most common one. Another one I use with my students is every good burger deserves fries. And so you can come up with your own, of course, meaning E, G, B, D, F. E, G, B, D, F. So this will help you remember the lines and the spaces on a treble clef. Now let's take a look at the bass clef now. So the notes on the spaces of the bass clef are A, C, E, G. A, C, E, G. And our phrase to remember is all cows eat grass. A, C, E, G. Okay, of course it's different than the treble clef because our point of reference has changed. And now let's take a look let's change the color here, at the lines of the bass clef. So the lines of the bass clef, we have G, B, D, F, A. Good boys do fine always. And of course, you can always come up with your own phrases. Like I said before, one of my students came up with her own. She was really mad that all of these phrases had a boy in it. So she came up with girls beat dragons from asteroids. So she was being a little creative. So you can be creative as well and come up with your own phrases. So these phrases will help you remember these notes a little bit easier. So if we come down back to this graph, we can see every good boy does fine. Or if we see the spaces, all cows eat grass. Okay? So make sure to really practice these phrases, and it's going to be very helpful for you if you become very proficient at recognizing where the notes are. So everything will be much easier when we learn major scales, chords, harmony. You'll be able to recognize the notes much faster. So I guess the first step to becoming very good at music theory is knowing where the notes are on a staff.